So what are the key facts? What are the key takeaways from today's training? Well, we know London is growing. Not necessarily bigger, but it's becoming more densely packed. We're putting in more buildings, more infrastructure, more construction. We're also adding more and more vans and trucks on our roads. If we want to improve the air quality, and if we want to make those roads safer, if we want to reduce the traffic jams, we have to make sure that we plan our construction logistics very, very carefully. Whether our site is enormous or small, or whether the sites are just different, we need to take a consistent approach to our application process. So how do we get that consistency? Well, the good news is we have a tool within our reach that will provide it. It's called the Construction Logistics Plan. So let's be clear, the purpose of a construction logistics plan is to make reductions in 4 key areas. The first is the environment, to reduce noise, dust, emissions, vibrations. The next reduction is in your road risk. You need to be able to reduce the likelihood of a collision between one of your vehicles and a vulnerable road user. The third area is in reducing congestion, particularly during the peak and rush hour periods, through smarter planning, through better use of routing and vehicle utilisation. Do all of those and we'll also reduce our costs. But get your CLP wrong, you could end up with delays in starting building which could incur costs, and you don't want that. That's why we have the new Construction Logistics Plan with the latest guidance and requirements. As you've heard, the new guidance says the CLP should have 5 key must-haves. The first, it must be consistent when you write it, working to the same headings, providing the same key bits of information. Secondly, it's got to be proportionate. No matter how big the site or small, your CLP needs to reflect that size. The third thing, it needs to be accurate. If you're forecasting vehicle movements into and out of your site, you've got to be bang on the money with the numbers. Fourth, you've got to take due consideration of planned measures. Those are the alternatives you can have to regular transport. And if you can't use those alternatives, you've got to say why. And finally, in the writing of your CLP, you've got to show that throughout the process, it will be reviewed, managed, and monitored. So if things change on the road, you can adjust it for them. On that last point, the developer will be ultimately responsible for creating the CLP and making sure it works throughout the entire development process. But developers are just one of a number of key stakeholders that are needed to make sure your CLP is properly implemented. Those stakeholders include the contractors, the suppliers, and the road haulage contractors. All of them have a key part to play in making sure your CLP works. And that's why you should be sitting down at the table talking to them when you're writing your CLP. After all, if they don't know what you're committing them to, how can they deliver it? One of the essential things that must be considered at this writing stage is planned measures. Your means of mitigating the impact of the development on both the immediate surrounding area and the wider environment. The new guidance asks you to carefully consider certain suggested planned measures and use them whenever possible. If you can clearly explain why you've decided to opt for these measures or not to opt for these measures, it will help the person assessing your CLP to grant you permission. On the other hand, if you can't justify why you're not considering certain planned measures, or if your CLP doesn't meet the latest requirements laid out in the guidance, it won't be approved and your planning permission could be delayed. So we come to the bottom line. Why do we have CLPs? We have them because CLPs are good for your business, they're good for your industry, and they're good for London. So let's make the most of them.